All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone to the combined business meeting, annual meeting, the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:40. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to begin with a bit of an explanation. We usually had been holding a ceremonial annual meeting. It was, first of all, it cost extra, and it was confusing because there are still statutes out there that apply to townships that are governed via an annual meeting. We are not one of them. To get whatever the requirement is, 10 or 15% of the electorate together in one place. In our case, we don't have a place to get, 1,000, 2,000 people. So decades ago, those authorities were given to township boards. We govern via the township board. So annual meetings we've had in the past have been ceremonial. We just opted not to have one tonight to end the confusion as to what legislation, what statutes are run by an annual meeting, which ones are run by a board of trustees. We run this township via your board of trustees. That's why we're here, because we're supposed to have some expertise in everything. With that, we have 6 members. Treasurer Van Oss is excused for this evening, but we do have a quorum for business. With that, I'll entertain additions, deletions to the agenda, other than the ones I'm going to introduce. Now, I'll bring up mine. First, on the consent agenda, I'm going to ask to remove consent agenda item number 3, which is paying the bills after April 1st. And back to the action items, we have to pass the budget first before we can pay any bills after April 1st. Support. Okay, thank you. And that's really not a vote item, but thanks anyway.
Okay.
And the other one that will require a vote, I'm going to petition the board to add, find it, action item thank you. It would be action item 8 if approved. Request the Board of Trustees increase the submitted general fund budget by $5,720 to accommodate a future market adjustment for Finance Director Ann Darzniak. Additionally, to increase the submitted Airport Commerce Park budget by $14,579 to accommodate a future market adjustment for Airport Commerce Park Manager Michael Duker. That is the motion. Okay, moved by Supervisor and seconded by Clerk O'Connor. Discussion among the board. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, this is just a request to add to the tonight's agenda. All right, I detect no.
No, we were letting you get your discussion.
Mr. Buddy.
I was hoping to see somebody else talk, but I would be against adding this. We had our meetings on the budget. These were items that we cut out, and at that meeting, Mr. Van Oss and the others said this is it for the budget, and now it wants to be brought back in. The board knows my feelings on any pay raises this year with a deficit. I'm certainly against them. I would be against adding anything to the budget, even though we're not very clear. This would not be giving them the raises. This is just putting the money into the budget for the raises, which would be adding to our deficiency. So I would be against it.
Other questions, comments from the board?
Supervisor, I would indicate that we had 2 study sessions. The first one, candidly, was exceptionally difficult. The second one began even more difficult than the first. Midway through the second study session, and the stumbling block was the raises for two individuals without having studied or done the comparables. I understand that and I recall making a proposal that we include an amount of $4,000 in the budget for each of those. That was done as a compromise, and I made that proposal, I made that compromise, and I thought there was consensus that night for that proposal and compromise, recognizing this is not a final matter or final resolution of the issue. It could be no increase, it could be the total increase, it could be larger or less depending upon study that was done for both of those positions. I gave my word 12 days ago. I indicated then that I would stand by the $4,000 for each of those. I think that was given in good faith. I know it was given in good faith by me, and I thought we had a consensus. I am not prepared to change my mind. I gave my word. My word is my bond, and I'm not going to change my mind at this time, so I'm going to have to join Mr. Budney in saying no.
Hey, thank you. Other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Malvesto.
Excuse me. I'm going to be echoing the same thing that Mr. Bletcher and Mr. Bundy just said. Absolutely right. Our first open study session was 2 hours, but very difficult. We went into another study session that lasted well past 11:30 that evening. I thought we walked away with a consensus amongst us, not an agreement, not a vote, not an approval, but a consensus, as was been stated by Mr. Buddy and Mr. Bletcher. Then all of a sudden Friday, we see this other proposal hit our desk about midday. I'm not prepared at this time to support this.
Okay. Other questions, comments from the board? All right. So we have a motion and a second. This is just to add it, not to approve it. This is just to add this to the agenda. So with okay, on the consent agenda item, it's just a consent agenda. If any board member takes it off the consent agenda, it automatically goes to action item. There's no vote required, as I read the consent agenda rules. This one, we need board consensus to bring it on as an agenda item. Unless I... Second. Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
I read them as being two items, but it's okay.
Okay, well, in that case, I'll stand.
Yeah.
Let's just unravel this a little
well,
bit. Those in favor of moving action item 3, consent agenda item 3 from the consent agenda and add it would be action item 8, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we got that one behind us. Now, wrapping up discussion, we have a motion and a second on Treasurer Van Oss's request, which would eventually be action item 9, should it be approved. Okay. We've got 3 who said, well, we'll just put it up. Comments before I put it up for a vote? I'll do a roll call vote. I'll start supervisor voting aye. Trustee Budney?
Nay.
Madam Clerk?
Aye.
Trustee Nelson?
Aye.
Trustee Bletcher?
Nay.
And Trustee Malvesto?
Nay.
So that's 3-3. The motion does not carry, will not be added tonight. So those in favor of approving the agenda as modified with the new action item 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The agenda stands as amended. With that, we'll open it up to public comment limited to tonight's agenda items. 3 minutes. Introduce yourself. Tonight's agenda items. All right. With no... Mrs. Walker.
Kathy Walker, Thorpe Court. The board has been entrusted with something very precious: the fiscal well-being of the residents, their homes, their community, something very special to all of us. Fortunately, with the 2016-2017 actual losses and I've been told it's approximately 190,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the 2017-2018 projected budget loss of 234,000. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the documents, but I've been hearing this. Plus the $42,000 in skating ring loss. It's a total of $466,000. That's all. There's no defined plan to reverse this unfavorable trend, and it is a trend. And it's a bad trend, and none of us want to see that, especially with the general fund contracting so quickly. And times are pretty good right now. I mean, you don't see as many people losing their houses like we did. I mean, there was a real problem a few years ago, and it was terrible. But if the rainy day fund is being depleted and evaporated before our very eyes when times are good, what about the hard looks, the tough decisions that were not made? What will happen down the road? Will there be more taxes? Will they be increasing? Will they try to do millages? What will be going on to change this? Because this kicking the can down the road is not going to help. And unfortunately, this is what exists. And in a perfect world, you know, we wouldn't pay much taxes, everybody get raises, and things would be peachy. But it's not. And I don't know what's going to change because it seems like everything is being the same. And I personally would like to see a harder look at the township. Perhaps bring in a specialist from outside. Perhaps go out and bid different projects and not just go to the same people, because the same people give you the same results. You need fresh eyes to look at what's going on. And I cannot believe that there aren't places to save money and to rearrange things and do it in a better way, because other communities can. I've looked into it. I've seen some of the local communities like Trenton. My God, when Trenton was going through the same thing Grosse Ile was, they took a 5% pay cut, the staff. That must have hurt. I mean, that must have truly hurt, but they felt it was the thing to do. They got rid of pensions 20 years ago. Again, that must have hurt. I understand that. But they were ahead. They were forward thinking. And we have to be that way if we want to survive. You've got a declining population. It's not like Novi or Northville where they're growing like 30-some%. You've got problems. You've got to address them. And I hope this board, who I supported most of you, and I supported with my mouth and my money, I wanted to see change. And I'm hoping to see fiscal change and real concern and analyzation, real analysis. Not, well, we can't do anything, because you can. I cannot believe you can't do something. There's specialists out there. Bring them in, have them analyze it, and don't have the same good old boys, because I'm tired of hearing about the good old boys and their friends. Have strangers come in, look at things, give you options. You don't have to accept them, but at least you'd be open to them, and that's what I'm hoping to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Other comments from the public president? Mr. Heil.
My words will be different than Kathy's, but basically I have a position that is similar to hers. I was concerned when I heard what the trends were. It has bothered me all for the past 2 weeks. Way back when, I honestly don't remember, it's 3 years, 4 years ago, but I did some reading about millage. And there's studies that have been done, and when the aggregate millage that is on a community is at 50 mils or higher, long term it sets into effect, in most cases, a spiral where property values go down and the community gets into trouble. The reason for that is that if you have to pay more taxes and you can only afford so much for housing, the only thing that can change is the price of the house. It has to come down if a transaction is to take place. And so it seems to me that if that's a fact that I've read about, and I could go back and go over the internet and find several articles, it would take me some time, but if that's a reality I've studied, then we have to make some new choices, and they're difficult choices. And Kathy has alluded to the fact that they're difficult, and you gentlemen here, ladies, have also done that. I think that when we look at the fact that I've heard several people speak over the week about the fact that our pensions, for example, which have had a mandate from MERS to be brought up to date and make payments on a 27-year basis instead of 30, or collapse it to 22 or maybe to 18. That's more weight for us to carry. And if we're taking our safety fund right now and using it up, we're diminishing our resilience in case of some unexpected expense. I looked at the total obligations that we have, and I know that you don't have to write a check for all of them at once, but in my shirt-tail math, I came up with roughly $40 million. And if we've only got $2 million as a safety net against obligations like that, I'm not a financier, but I worry about that ratio. I would like to have had a little bit bigger sock to hold the safety net in. I think we need to take a look at things. I had suggested on a couple of occasions, for example, that we might increase our tax base to increase revenue. One idea was to take some of open space and put a housing subdivision in with smaller homes that families could afford. We would not only increase the tax base, but we would also bring children into the school system, and we need that, and the state contributes money. And another thought was maybe a really snappy senior citizen center over on Macomb. I mean, if you get something that's got enough money behind it, and people with wealth would like it here, golf courses, yacht clubs, an airport, all kinds of recreation, it's a nice place to be. You'd have a highly concentrated tax base, but you also have people who are going to go over and talk with their buddies and drink coffee and patronize the restaurants and everything else. So I think we need to take a hard look at that in the future, and it will be difficult. The choices are not going to be fun, but I honestly believe they're necessary and encourage you to undertake them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Heil. Other comments from the public present? Mr. Horvath.
Ernie Horvath, Hickory Island. I've given this considerable thought, and I've been here 40 years, and I started really looking at it about 10 years ago. But like most people here, they really don't know what's going on. We don't have any way of communicating. Now, in all the 3 corporate jobs I had, every time I had an opportunity for a corporate sales job, there were companies that were in trouble, and we turned it around. And there was only one way that I earned my pay and bonuses and promotions based on merit and performance and results. I think that should be instituted here. I had a pay scale that was controlled with ranges and bands.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. What agenda item are we commenting on?
Same as I support what Bill Heil said and what Kathy Walker
Bill
said.
was very peripherally, and only it's a continuation of a discussion we had this afternoon, but only very peripherally focused on the budget.
Okay, you want to get the budget in balance. There's several ways you can do it. I was maybe too specific with those previous comments. Cut projects. Everyone should take a pay cut, sacrifice to keep your job, and you should be promoted or get raises based on merit and performance, and increase revenue. I don't see anything here to increase revenue. Now, if you're going to increase your budget by giving raises, then what did that particular person do to increase revenue? What did any of you do to suggest to increase revenue? You have to have revenue and you have to cut. That's Donald Trump. That's Lee Iacocca. That's every great businessman you've ever seen. If you don't do that, you can't keep going down the road spending your reserve to balance the budget. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Horvath. Mr. Zalasko.
In addition to that, just a couple comments on action item number 1. Obviously, the people are coming up here. They have some comments. They have some concerns. And they had some very good concerns. The one that I would just like to add to is Mr. Heil brought up the pensions. I'm sure we're all aware that we all talked about it before the election, so on and so forth, and I would just hope that somewhere down the near future we're going to take a hard look at that and see what options we may have. On a more positive note, action item number 4, item number 4, I'd like to compliment Lorenda and the DPS committee on accelerating the approval of the dust control. As you know, the bond has been broken by the Wayne County trucks, and May can be a very, very bad month. So I'd like to thank you for moving the schedule up, and hopefully in the month of May, maybe we can get some dust control just a little bit earlier. It's a nice job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zalasko. Other comments on tonight's agenda? All right, I'm just going to throw out there the anticipated or the forecast $190 million deficit that was referenced earlier is going to sort out to probably closer to $90 million. I keep beating up Mrs. Darsniak. 90,000, yeah, 90 million. Yeah, they'll find my body in the parking lot. Maybe. All right. Million, thousand, it's just. Okay, with that, though, I attempt to chastise Mrs. Darsniak about being so, she calls it conservative, I call it pessimistic, but I think it's going to end up about 90,000 as opposed to 190,000. Next year's budget, if she stays true to form, I mean, yes, it will be a deficit. It won't be anywhere near, hopefully, if historically, what she has conservatively forecast, and we are taking, we have looked at it, and more of this will come in the budget discussion. Okay, with presentation, with the public comment over, let's step to the consent agenda. Mr. Budney.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda 16-097, which consists of the minutes of the March 13th, 2017 regular meeting and approval to process and distribute payments on check register dated through fiscal year March 31st, 2017.
Okay, I'll support that. Moved by Trustee Budney, second by Supervisor Loftus. Comments, questions on tonight's consent agenda? None offered. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda, I already lost the number, 16-097, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's none offered. That stands approved. With that, we will move on to tonight's action items, and I will introduce the action item as I sift through my pile of stuff. Okay, I move the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees adopt the fiscal year ending 2018 combined township budget effective April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
Support.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Budney. This changes only slightly from what was presented on March 13th. Do we have a presentation? Do we just want to put the general fund numbers up?
Yeah, you can put that first page up. We did the presentation last page. Yeah, you want to put that and then the first page of the. Yeah, put that up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Elmo fired up?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if we want to do a presentation. I mean, we did a full presentation last time.
And very little has changed.
Yep.
Would you point out the last number in the lower right, how much this budget has increased over last year's? And this is just the presented budget. It won't.
Right. Last year, if you look at our, this one's actually going to be better for you guys to see. That make more sense? So we're comparing, this is just general fund budget. So we're comparing this year to last year. Last year, for the 2016-17 fiscal year, we budgeted 190 as a deficit. Hopefully, like you said, we should be around 100-ish, just depending on the audit, all the audit work that needs to be done at the end of the year. And this budget, we're projecting a $230,000 budget difference. Our original came out to 244. We went back to the drawing board and came up with a negative 230.
I want to throw in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Don't mumble.
Got to get over.
In that budget, we got hit with three unanticipated expenses. We $32,000 for election equipment. We hadn't anticipated.
$32,000 for electric.
The $15,000 for what is it? The
actuarial
review
that we have to do. We have to do an actuarial every 3 years on your unfunded health care. And then the other one was MERS.
The MERS
I'm throwing these out. I don't remember if it was MERS was 94 and healthcare was 80-ish.
Yeah.
So there were a couple different, just by memory, but that's where you come up with that 230. If you take those unexpected or differences, that's where the difference comes up.
We have trouble planning for these unexpected budget adds.
Yeah.
So the one number I want to focus on is in the lower right corner. This budgeting over last year, 0.42%.
Increase, yep.
So the Southeast Michigan Consumer Price Index increased 1.58%.
Yep.
And our budget increased 0.42%. So
That's correct.
I don't think we were extravagant in keeping our increase that low.
That's correct.
Especially with the unanticipated surprises we got.
And again, for the residents, this budget is a working document. Nothing in this budget is in stone. That happens throughout the year as the board adopts things. But at this point, it is a true working document.
So, yep, this is the difference between appropriations and authorizations. And, let me just read I queried my good friend Catherine Millop, the staff attorney at the Michigan Townships Association, and she puts it in clearer terminology than I would. But I try to minimize those concerns by emphasizing that the township's budget is nothing more than a plan. At no time is the board committing itself to any specific program or item allocated for in the budget or to specific amounts. There is no point of return. There is no legal reason for one or more board members to believe that they must put the brakes on before adopting the budget. She goes on, the actual decision to spend or to provide a program that was budgeted for is still up to the township board. The budget is not actual authorization to spend or to pay. Those are still board decisions. And I'll just let that was from Catherine Millhup, staff attorney to the Michigan Townships Association. It just puts in perspective, budget, as Ann said, is a working document. It's the township's plan from the various departments going forward. Obviously, nothing happens unless we can fund it, and this gives our departments the ability to go forward with their planning. It's not authorization we're going to pay. It just lets them know that the board has reviewed what their plans are, and we'll consider it at the appropriate time, consider it further. And we can add or subtract from the budget as the year goes on, as we've done 8.5 years I've been here.
Right. Also, I don't want residents out there to think our township is in doom and gloom. We are sitting on $2 million in the bank. I just wanted to put that out there because those numbers sound big, but we're still well-funded amongst what is normal in the industry. We should have a fund balance about 15 to 25%, no lower than that, and ours is like 48%. So just to want to ensure the residents that we are not in dire straits by passing this budget.
We're not going on a spending spree either to get the numbers down there, and I think it would be pertinent, although probably not part of this conversation, for the board as we work on our township policies and procedures to establish, hopefully we never get there, a lower threshold before we make serious cuts, and an upper threshold at which point we don't levy full amounts. I don't think we're bouncing against either of those thresholds at the moment, but the $2 million in our cash reserves, that's your tax dollars you gave to us to spend prudently. I think some of that should be spent to better run the township. Not everybody on the board agrees with me, but it would do better to keep our police and fire fully funded and our township staff running smoothly rather than let it sit in the bank. So those are my thoughts right now as we proceed. Mrs. O'Connor.
Thank you. And I hope I'm not catching you off guard by asking you these questions, but
Nope.
At our last meeting, you actually gave a budget presentation with charts and everything. Yeah. And you pointed out something to us that I want to kind of bring up after the queries and questions we received from the public. If you can just, what % of our general fund budget is actually taken up by the police department, and what % is actually taken up by administration? If I'm not mistaken, the biggest chunk is police.
That's correct. Dale, is it possible to pull up the presentation? It might be easier just.
I think it just bears repeating to our residents that in the past, and unfortunately I do have a bit of history working with this board over almost 20 years back, there was a time when the entire appropriation, state allocation of monies to run the township was actually allocated to the police department. And the township administration ran on basically revenue sharing, that portion which the state returned to us from sales taxes. So it was probably around 2000, 2005 when revenues in the state started to go down, and we had to I think, incredibly shrink our staff. We went from, I think, in the intervening years, we've almost halved the staff from where it was in 1996 when I first took office. What we did is we found savings by combining departments, Ernie. We did studies with outside advisors to make sure that duties were separated. So instead of having a separate clerk staff, a separate treasurer staff, and a separate supervisor's fiscal staff, we combined to create a finance department in which a smaller number of people actually perform the payables, receivables, and budget functions of the township. In the intervening years, we were able to get millages approved dedicated to the police so that more of the state allocation could go to run the township without raising taxes. So I just wanted to fill in while you were looking for those figures.
No, I found some of the graphs. We can see that state share revenues, yes, we hit a bad times, and now it's coming up slowly. We can hope that these will continue to raise. They're continuing to raise at a small amount. But if you look at, we haven't raised in question people's taxes. Our taxes today, are we getting so much less than we got in 2009 just because of the SEV? We haven't raised taxes. If you look at the chart, the millages has not gone up. Our assessments have gone down so far. If you take those two equations, one times the other, it's the same as it was in 2009. We're not gaining by having these, we're not raising millages. We're not even raising taxes. It's not even where it was in 2009. So all these misconceptions that we're constantly raising taxes, we're not. It's based on the assessments have gone down so far. We're paying way less taxes, about 1/3 less taxes today for the same house that we paid in 2009.
And then you have that pie chart that shows the...
And then we go through people, and we look at employee costs. We talked about that. We realize that, the pensions are pensions and health care. And we have took measures to stop those. Pensions have been looked at for a 2-tier system so that the new people coming in, same as all the other communities are doing. And our retirement health care has been capped out. So employees now pay the increases. So those two areas have been looked at. Things change slow. You have unions to deal with, 2 different separate unions, and things change, but they don't change overnight. They didn't start overnight, and they don't change overnight. So
here we go.
We're getting into the revenue. Just for a general fund, $3.4 million is property taxes. And state share revenue is $846. So what happens, if we look at the next graph, what happens is the police department, if you look at total police wages against property, total percentage of revenue from taxes, including all revenue from taxes, a big issue is we used to be allocated at 1.85 mills, was the only mill that a township could levy without the vote of the township. Well, now that has fallen to 1.26 mills. So the power we have... Let me
clarify. That's a result of the Headley Amendment that was passed in 1978.
Yep.
Followed by Proposal A, which was approved by the voters in 1994.
Right.
Much of Proposal A superseded Headley, but portions of Headley remained, and in times of inflationary periods, it was overlooked because it was
Right.
irrelevant. In recovery times like we are now, Headley is what drove down our millage. I mean, that would be
Right.
$300,000
Yep.
extra had we be able to collect the full 1.85 mils. We would not have been in a deficit the last several years.
Correct.
Were it not for the Headley rollbacks. That's something out of our control. It's out of your control.
Right. So that gives, we've lost all that power to levy. It should be at about $1 million, and it's at $700,000. So this right here, again, out of our control, are big issues. But if you look at our expenditures over the last 5, 6, 7 years, they haven't raised 1.5%. I mean, our expenditures are not our issue. When things like this out of our control happen, we do have to change business, or we have the rainy day fund. Those are the issues. If you look at it again, the police department takes up 95% of our taxes. Everything that we're allowed to levy, the police department takes up 95% of it.
And that's where I'm trying to go with a comment that the resident made, is that 95% of our township general fund goes to the police department. Mm-hmm. So if the argument is being made, raise revenues or cut pay, raise revenues or cut programs, when you look that 95% of our general fund is police, where would you like the police to start raising revenues? More tickets? More fines? Would you like them to cut some of our programs? Our state has said that our police department is one of the best in the state. We're one of the safest communities in the state of Michigan in our size and in our country. So to us, that's where the majority of our money goes. Our administration, on the other hand, gets 5% of that budget, and they also do a lot of heavy lifting. They're not out there 24/7 fighting fires and solving crimes out in the neighborhood, but they're doing something metaphorically the same here in the hall. They're trying to get you the most bang for your buck. They're trying to find grants that we can access. They're helping staff meet their goals. They're working to get the best contracts. Now, granted, we don't all agree 100% of the time, but for a small township with a small staff that we have, I think I take exception that our staff and our board isn't doing enough to contain costs or to plan for our expenditures. And what's in this budget, with all due respect to the supervisor, that is a document that he works on with the administration, but has total input from all of the departments that work for this township. So the fire department has presented what it needs and what it if we have the extra, what it would want. Our police department has done that, DPS, recreation, the clerks, treasurers, etc. So these numbers didn't just come out of the air. These numbers were devised and researched by many people. The DPS commission has, I think, 7 or 9 members. All of these bodies have done the research that have brought these numbers to the forefront. Then the last point I want to make is we have enterprise funds that are totally separate from the general fund. So DPS is actually revenue driven by our use of water and our generation of refuse. We have an airport that is supported by the revenues it generates. We do not subsidize per se. We may work with them and make loans or help them underwrite loans with the federal government, but we're not subsidizing what they do. And so it's important that we make those distinctions. Our fire department has a millage, and so it doesn't come under the same scrutiny because it's not quote unquote general fund. But it's still, we're very proud of our fire department and everything that they do. And so we don't want to kneecap these departments and say we want to hold you to that same standard, but we're going to cut your pay, we're going to cut your ability to reach that standard. And I think the majority of our residents would agree with that. And I have one last question, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Assorti, you're our township attorney. Dale, you're our manager. And it's been a long time since I've, gone through this process. But I also recall from the past that even though we have what we call a rainy day fund, we are not allowed to really build a big rainy day fund from taxes that we've collected. Am I correct in that assumption? Is there a limit to how long we can hold on to funds by not spending them? People give us that money to create the programs that they want. If we hold on to that money and don't give them the programs, don't we have to give that money back? And maybe that's the heart of this discussion, is they want us to give the money back.
I'm not aware of any constraint on that, but
Okay.
but I will ask when I'm up at MTA.
I'm also not aware of any legal issue.
Yeah,
but
I don't know
it's
if
a
it's
decision the
legal.
board makes.
Well, yeah, Mr. Asardi was.
The only restrictions that would be in place is when you go into the special millages that you have. For instance, if you have a special millage for fire or public safety in some way, there would be some restrictions on your ability to basically to take the money and hold it there.
Open space is a
And then
good
go
example.
after,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
That would be the only limitation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, didn't we, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, don't we have 14 police officers currently? And we hired at least one, so the overtime would get reduced, that we've been paying for overtime. So that should help us. I don't know how many thousands, but I heard the name or the number 30,000 tossed around. But, we are doing things. Are we doing them fast enough? Sounds like we probably aren't. It's my first time through it. I'd like to start the process earlier next year. I would also like a quarterly report as to where we are each quarter, and I'd like to balance the budget. And hopefully not in the backs of our employees or programs, but I think we can do this. But you guys are out there all right. We need to get our arms around it, and I will do anything I can do to try and do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Other.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Darsnick for the work that she did and spent 2 very long hours with us in initial budget session. I got home after midnight on the second one after we went through 105 pages, page by page, in some cases line by line, and I did not find or experience a single unanswered question by the end of that second night. I considered that to be a remarkable performance. I want to publicly acknowledge the work that you did, Ann. You did a great job. I walked out of there while we may have disagreements about items without going forward too far. You did a terrific job, and I will look anybody in the eye and say that you did that, and I would defend your work as well. And I walked out of there after my first budget convinced that you really do have your hands on things. You have your hands on all of the answers, most importantly. And I walked out of there confident that we had, in fact, received a remarkable presentation, and I felt a rather remarkable collegiality when we left, knowing that there were some things that we needed to do. I just want to publicly acknowledge the fine job that I think that you did. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for well over 20 years in various capacities within the township, and I was just absolutely blown away at how good a job you did.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Other, Mr. Buddy.
I think certainly the supervisor and the rest of the board know that I am not happy at all with the budget. I don't think we did enough. Part of the problem is that the board gets to look at this very late in the game, and we don't have a lot of time to come up with answers. There are things in it that I will be moving against as they come up as issues. But the one thing that we have to do is pass the budget, or the doors are closed Saturday, April 1st. So the supervisor read to you from that attorney is correct. It's what we're going to vote on today. This budget carves nothing in stone, and we all the things that are in it, whether we agree with them or disagree with them, will be argued as they come up throughout the year. But the gun is to our head. We have to pass a budget.
I want to thank you, Mr. Budney. So we saw the big items in the general fund is our police department and paying the staff and future liabilities. But let me say something on behalf of our police department. Yes, we're the safest community continuously based on crime statistics. I don't know how many of you have to think about this the way I do, but our police force is are all trained as first responders. They're the guys who are going to be there within a minute or two and get your heart restarted or get the oxygen to your face or stop the bleeding and keep you alive. Shortly thereafter, the ambulance will be there with the heavy equipment to get you transported. We don't have an ambulance crew standing by on duty. I mean, Chief Murdoch should look into that. There isn't an ambulance company for as few runs as we actually have compared to what they're used to, who wants to put an ambulance here and have a crew sitting on alert, basically, to respond. Our police officers do that. So we have a public safety team that works in an integrated fashion. When I explain that to fellow supervisors, other mayors, how well they work, how they don't compete for the public safety dollar, they apportion it and spend it wisely. Again, the only answer I get is, man, you're doing something right. So, yes, we have an expensive police budget. We're the oldest community downriver. We're the safest community in the state of Michigan, and they save lives. So, yeah, we could cut police officers. We'd lose people. I mean, it's just simple math, or it's brutal math, but that's just the way it is. So, yeah, we have it's expensive, but I think the residents so far have been supporting it. We may have an opportunity, and this is opportunity to reapportion. I'm not going to go into tonight to get the millages more appropriately defined as to what supports general fund and what supports police. It will be, I'd love to do it. It'd be a Herculean task, but when we had our budget meetings, we looked at that and said, man, that makes sense. Now it's just making it happen. To my fellow board members, this is the most interest a board has had in a budget. This will be my 9th. And to that end, I welcome them aboard. And Mrs. Darzniak and the manager and I, actually, by statute, it's the manager's responsibility. We work as a team. The manager and the finance director work with the departments, and supposedly I work with the board and get them all on board. Didn't do as well as I usually do this year. But with that, with the expectations I come away from this with, is that we'll start earlier. We'll have the preliminary budget meetings in evenings when more board members can attend, and get this stuff ironed out sooner so that we're not staying till 11:30, 2 weeks before the end of the fiscal year. So that's my guarantee to my fellow board members. And, see you next February, and bring your pencils and calculators. I have no further comments for tonight. Any other comments on Mrs. O'Connor?
You'll indulge me just one more. I really liked what Trustee Budney had to say is approving this budget doesn't mean that those of us who are voting to approve the budget actually support every item that's in the budget. But what we do support is the fact that the township needs a plan, needs to know what its departments think they need to run efficiently and effectively. And then from there on in, every item will be discussed. And hopefully, we've established a dialogue among the board members now. The more communication we have, I'm channeling Ted, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
The more communication we have earlier, I think the more opportunities board members have to get involved in raising objections, the more opportunities the administration takes to educate us on why certain things are wanted or desired. I think we're going to come up with a much better end result. So it's been a tough couple of weeks, but I'm actually very proud of where all of us have come from and that we've managed to iron this out. Agreeing to disagree. And I think that's really, really a milestone.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Other questions, comments?
Yes.
Trustee Malvesto.
First off, I'd like to make it clear, in our public safety department, both the police department and the fire department generate funds. The police department, in a large part, is generated by revenue sharing, by being associated with different government programs, and the money comes back to Grosse Seal, and it certainly allows that department to pick up some of it, cover some of its own costs. The fire department, for every run that our ambulance makes, there's a charge to that, and it comes back to the fire department. It builds their ambulance fund. It allows them to regenerate all the supplies that are used in the course of a run. So they both do generate funds. They also benefit from revenues generated that are shared within the township by cell towers. So they are not neither one of them are 100% drain on our tax dollars. I just want that to be clear, because they do, in fact, generate funds for their department. Going back to our past March 13th meeting, we had a 2-hour study session, what we are all aware of now. It was a very difficult one, and when we left, we decided to have another open study session that lasted well after 11 o'clock that particular night. So the numbers that we discussed were the numbers that were given to us at that time. I'm a little surprised tonight to find out that the $190,000 deficit for last year might only be $90,000, or maybe it'll be $100,000. I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet.
Good to know.
So what we're talking about right now is for this coming year is almost a $245,000 deficit. Those are the numbers that were presented to us at the time of the study sessions, and those are the only numbers that we had to discuss, to use for our discussion. There are departments within the township that have some outstanding debt without a defined payback to the township. Very large numbers. No, we weren't prepared for things that came at us through MERS and pensions and health care. No, we weren't prepared for that. And I can accept that. I can accept the fact that there's a $2 million fund out there that we could use to cover ourselves on it. We can't fight City Hall, so to speak. It comes at us. We have to write the check. We have to pay for it. But when it comes down the end of it, this budget needs to be passed this evening so that we can continue to operate come April. I understand if it's not chiseled in stone. I'm just concerned that the things have changed from our last study session without discussion. I'm not happy about it, but I will. When it comes down to a vote, I understand that we need to move forward, and I'll vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. The reduction in this year's deficit is an unknown. It's just an estimate right now.
That was the budgeted
actually, we don't
estimate.
know until the audit.
Right. We got to do the audit first.
But my point was, those were the numbers that we had at our disposal at the time of our study sessions. What happens today, I can't change that. I mean, that's what we had to use at the time of those study sessions, those discussions. So that's what we had to go by. That's what I had to go by. So that was my point.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay, this is the big one for tonight.
Oh my God.
So, and I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Those in favor of adopting the fiscal year ending 2018 combined township budget, effective April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018, signify by saying aye. Aye, as the budgeteer will lead. Supervisor votes aye. Clerk O'Connor.
Aye.
Trustee Budney.
Aye.
Writing this down. Trustee Nelson.
Aye.
Trustee Malvesto.
Aye.
And Trustee Bletcher.
Aye.
So that makes all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Again, this is a very involved process. It's an ongoing process. We have just started on this year's budget. And Mrs. Darzniak, again, thank you for the hours and hours and the patience you've demonstrated explaining to me exactly how we go through this sausage making. All right, action item number 2. Now we're getting to stuff that's just a little more pleasant. The way those volunteers, those dedicated residents, your neighbors, who help us run the township.
Okay.
Mrs. O'Connor.
Well, I'm very proud to make a motion to, and I think we're going to go through the different commissions and committees to appoint the various designated chairpersons to the committees. So the motion is the appointment of committee and commission chairpersons for fiscal year 2017 to 2018. My first portion here is to appoint John Schweikart as chairperson of the Planning Commission for the term April 1, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
Okay, and I would request the board appoint Mr. Ron Moran to the Brownfield Authority for the term April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018. That's as chair of the Brownfield Authority.
And I would request the appointment of William Kostick for the fiscal year 2017 through 2018 as chairperson of the Public Service Commission.
And I would move under an item number 4 to appoint Cliff St. Pierre, reappoint Cliff St. Pierre as chairperson of the Greenways Open Space Committee for the term April 1, 2017 through March 31, 2018.
I would move to appoint Stuart Keeler as chairperson of the Fire Commission for the term of April 1st, 2017 through March 31st of 2018.
Then I'll move we appoint Mr. Anthony Kraus as chair of the Construction Board of Appeals for the term of April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
And I would move to appoint Joseph Dixon as chairperson of the Police Commission for the term April 1, 2017 through March 31, 2018.
And I move the board reappoint Mr. Ron Moran as chair of the Airport Commerce Park Commission for the term of April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
I'd like to reappoint, who's here tonight, Chad Novak, as the Festival Chair Commission. This guy has nothing but energy. That's my motion.
Thank you. I'll move reappoint, again, Mr. Ron Moran as the chair of the Downtown Development Authority for the term April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
Okay, and I would be honored to appoint Brian Medved as the chairperson of the Island Beautification Committee for the term of April 1, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
And I would like to move to appoint James Bittinger as chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the term of April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
I request the board reappoint Mr. Al Anderson as chair of the Airport Advisory Committee for the term April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
I move to appoint Brian Pollock as chairperson of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission for the term of April 1st, 2017 through March 31st of 2018.
Okay, I would request the board reappoint Mr. Timothy Walker as the chair of the Board of Review for the term April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
And I would move that the board please appoint Mr. Peter Klunder as chairperson of the Municipal Ordinance Violation Bureau for the term of April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018.
Okay, we have a motion for all these reappointments. I will throw a general second for all of those appointments. And any discussion among the board? With none offered, those in favor of approving those appointments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participation running your commissions and committees. Mrs. O'Connor.
And in the spirit of continuing this, we are going to make a set of motions to reappoint Township Committee and Commission members for the fiscal year 2017 through 2018, to appoint or reappoint, which named below and confirmed by each committee and commission Township Board liaison. So we're going to start with the airport.
Okay, I'll begin by requesting to reappoint the Airport Commerce Park Commission, Mr. John Rathel and Mr. Walter Stoll, for the term April 4th, 2017 through April 3rd, 2020.
And I will move to reappoint to the Island Beautification Committee Ann Myers, Gerard Page, Richard Eifert, Brian Medved, and Mr. Art Kester for the term April 1, 2017 to March 31st, 2020.
Excuse me, Ms. Clerk, is that Amy Myers or Ann? You said Ann Myers?
What it says on here.
Yeah, you said Ann, and that's why.
I did?
Yeah, that's why.
Oh,
I
my.
asked.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Blonde moment.
Okay.
What can I say? Amy Myers.
Amy Myers.
Thank you.
Sorry, Amy.
My apologies, Amy.
Jim.
That was number 10. Sorry.
We're also asking you for number 3.
Sorry. I would like to reappoint to the Festival Commission Jacqueline Snow Davies and Wendy Kearney for the term August the 1st, 2017 to July 31st, 2020.
Thank you. I'd request the board confirm the supervisor's reappointment of Mr. Anthony Cross and Alan Anderson to the Construction Board of Appeals for the term April 1st, 2017 through March 31st, 2019.
And I would request that the board reappoint to the Greenways Open Space Committee Mr. Daryl Filarski and Ms. Roberta Urbani for the term of April 1, 2017 through March 31, 2018.
20. Well, I would like to move to confirm the supervisor's reappointment of Eric Ranka to the Planning Commission for the term April 1, 2017 to March 31st, 2020.
And I request the board reappoint to the Brownfield Authority Mr. John Rathel and Mr. Walter Stoll for the term April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2020.
Can't keep track of these. I would request that the board reappoint to the Zoning Board of Appeals Jacqueline Snow Davies for the term of April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2020. And then I would move to reappoint to the Public Service Commission Mr. Lenny Paderas for the term length April 4th, 2017 to April 3rd, 2020.
Thank you.
I would like to reappoint to the Community Recreation Commission Greg Meyering, Helena Woodward Ryan, and Ethel Yops for the term length April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2020.
Thank you. I request the board reappoint to the Downtown Development Authority Mr. Ron Moran for the term of October 1st, 2017 to September 31st, 2021, and also thank Ms. Gloria Trudell for her service as she has sought not to be reappointed.
And I would like to request the reappointment to the Municipal Ordinance Violation Bureau of Peter Klunder and Martha Herringshaw, the alternate, for the term of April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2020.
Okay, again, I will second those motions. And discussion among the board? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving those appointments and reappointments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service. The reason we can run this township.
Takes a lot of people. Takes a lot of people.
You're up.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract extension from D&D Emulsions, Inc. for dust control services for the 2017 season at the same rate of 58 cents per gallon applied based upon the recommendation of the DPS Commission.
Okay, I will second that motion. Moved by Trustee Budney, seconded by Supervisor Loftus. Background?
A little background. First of all, there is one exception. It will not be on Mr.
We'll do it on Blauvelt?
On Bob Z's road, but
Just this year,
he'll
though.
be excluded. Just this year, Bob. Just this year. That's okay. You'll see. You'll find out. This is we do this every year. This is our where we set a contract for the dust control of all our non-paved roads, which more and more seems like most of them. But for the actual dirt roads, this is what this is the dust control that we do. D&D emulsions have held their price since 2012, I believe. So they've been working with us very well. We've been very pleased with with what they do. We get very good feedback from the residents who actually live on the dirt roads for their product and how it works. So this is our annual contract.
Okay, let's see. I will chime in and echo Mr. Zalasko's concerns at being on one of those non-paved roads. They do a good job, and the difference is noticeable from day one. So I've been very happy with their performance. The fact they've kept their prices down over the last several years makes it even easier to move this along. From anybody else who lives on a dirt road? Okay, Mr. Black.
Quickly, Mr. Budney, how much money are we going to save by not doing Mr. Zalasko's driveway?
$58,600.
Okay.
Oh.
Further questions or comments, like how much to say by not doing my road? Is that what's coming next? With that not allowed, those in favor of approving the the contract extension from D&D Emulsions for dust control services for the 2017 at the same rate of 58 cents per gallon applied, based on the DPS Commission's recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. That moves along. Thank you very much.
Now he's listening. All right, moving right along. Action item number 5. Again, an annual item that we do, and I propose a motion to approve the contract compensation adjustment of $7,418.64, or 1.9%, be approved for Suez Environmental Services, Inc., the contract services at the wastewater treatment plant for the fiscal year 2017 to 2018, based upon the recommendation of the DPS Commission.
I will second that motion.
Okay, and this again is an annual thing within their Suez's contract with us. There is an annual adjustment for costs. 76. I want to get this right. 76% is based on employee wages and benefits. There is a table, of course. There's a table for everything, and there is a CPI for that, as well as the other 24% is based on your normal CPI, non-employee costs. Added together, it comes out to 1.9% this year. Again, it's in the contract. The series is spelled out in the contract. This whole the whole item is already spelled out in the contract, and this is we've been doing this for a couple of years now. So this is just the annual adjustment.
It was part of our original contract with them.
Correct. Correct.
That this would be a pro forma raise based on CPI increases.
The two CPIs involved, and it's all stated in the contract, so we're just following the contract.
Honoring the contract. Questions, comments among the board?
Just real quick, when was the last time we negotiated the contract?
Was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 5-year contract.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board? If none offered, those in favor of, based on the recommendation of the DPS Commission, approving the contract compensation adjustment, $7,418.64, equating to 1.9%, to be approved for Suez Environmental Services Incorporated, contract services at the wastewater treatment plant for fiscal year 2017 and 18. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered? That will
And
pass. And we'll keep
moving right along. Okay. Motion to approve the contract from Riverview Land Preserve for filling solid waste with option 2B as proposed, pending the contractual language being approved by the Township Attorney based upon the recommendation of the DPS Commission.
I will support that also.
Thank you. We have, and we have for years had a contract with Riverview Land Preserve. Our current contract expires December 31st, 2017. They came to us and asked if we could adopt a new contract at this time, either 5-year or 7-year, with various rates per year. All of the rates in the first 5 years, and bear with me as I flip to it. Is this the 5-year, 7-year? All of the rates in the 5-year and all of the rates through 6 of the 7 years in the 7-year option are less than what we're paying today. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us to say, yeah, let's go early, let's adopt this. I don't know what other landfill we'd go to,
limited market.
but it gives them the reason they wanted us to do this and why they're going out to all their people, all their clientele, is so that they can better project ahead for their budgeting purposes. But I believe our current rate is $20.33 per ton, and in the contract that is before us, the rates start at $18.52 for the first 3 years. They go up to $18.98, $19.45. The 6th year is $19.94, and the 7th year is only $20.34, so it's 1 penny more than what we're paying right now. So it looked like the thing to do, and so the motion is before you.
I'd kind of like Mrs. Beneteau to do my house payment or work on that contract. If she can get the price down every year.
Yeah.
Questions, comments among the board? The DPS has worked this. Mrs. Beneteau has worked this. Again,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there was a question with some of the language. I'd like to ask Tom to come up and explain that, because I know some of the trustees have asked me about it, and I'd just like Tom to explain where we are. I mean, that things will be okay.
You should all have my memo from, I believe it was March the 8th that I provided.
Yes, it was.
And one of the things that I remind this board frequently, when I review a contract, my job is to point out to you the pitfalls, the problems, and those types of things. It's your job to weigh the business aspect of them, and understanding that my job is to point out the liabilities, your job is to weigh those against the benefit of the contract. I know there's a significant savings with this. I know that probably even carries over into with our individual waste hauler. Some of the language that I pointed out to you in that memo, I think, are things that you can weigh against the benefits. This is basically the same language that's been in place since the 1990 agreement. Okay, one of the key points that I think became an issue was under Section 4.02, which gets the indemnity situation. And I brought that before the board on other occasions. Generally, in Michigan, the law is that a township is responsible only for acts of above gross negligence. When you have a contractual obligation to bind the township at a negligence level in between, you're taking on a contractual obligation that extends beyond your legal obligation. Okay, that happens. My job is to point it out to you that it's there and that you have an obligation to do it. Again, I've talked to the attorney for Riverview. They're not going to change the language. It wasn't like we battered back and forth, but their contract is what it is. They want it consistent with the other communities. And that's where we are. Given the savings, I think everybody understands what the implications are of that. My recommendation would be at this point, if you do ahead and go and improve it. I've also talked to Mr. Daly this afternoon about it, probably sitting down with him, seeing if there's appropriate coverage, like we've talked about in the past, when the township takes over this type of contractual obligation.
Yeah, and God knows I'm ultra-conservative about these things, and I wouldn't have brought this forward had I not thought that it was the savings to us is an overriding factor. The fact that we will be talking to Mr. Daly and shoring up that potential problem. I'm comfortable with, and I would hope the rest of the board is comfortable with it too.
That's always your concern with the contract is
right.
protecting the township.
Just because something hasn't happened for 27 years doesn't mean it's not going to happen tomorrow.
It can happen tomorrow, so you should protect yourself, and that's what we need to do. Our history has been good. We haven't had a problem, but it can happen tomorrow.
And just to point out, the contractual obligation to indemnify at a negligence level extends to our waste hauler as well, but our contract with our waste hauler, we're indemnified by our waste hauler for any actions that they take in that regard. So theoretically, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen through them, which we're covered under that contract and their insurance policy as well.
Right.
Just a small question, because my new employer always reminds me of the return on investment. When we're looking at a savings in the contract, and yet we have an issue like this, and my question was also going to be, how will we address, now that we know what's in the language, it's been pointed out to us, we certainly have to do something. Is it likely that this insurance coverage, the additional cost, is going to eat away at the savings, or no?
No. I would think, and I haven't talked to Mr. Daly, but I would think that because we're indemnified by Waste Management, to get down to us it could happen, but it's so minimal that the insurance risk wouldn't be that great, and thus the insurance won't cost that much.
And I'll certainly bring that back to you and identify to you what that is before there are any decisions are made in that regard. It's just something that again, you don't have to do that. There are lots of municipalities that have this kind of contract language in and leave it in all the time and wing it. And we have, right.
We're not wingers.
No, well, I don't want to suggest, the earth is ending either. Yeah. I mean, my job's to point these kind of things out so that you guys can make the appropriate business decisions. That's all.
We have Mr. Assorti, but
as I understand it, Mr. Assorti, we simply have two options here. Number one, we can try and dump the junk some other place, if
Correct.
we can use that term. Or we can go ahead and cover ourselves with the insurance that's appropriate for the risk that's being assumed. There's no third option.
Right. And to try and find another place. I mean, basically, your rate, what you're paying your waste management, any hauler, a part of that rate is how far does I have to go to empty my truck. And I don't know that you can get any closer than Riverview.
Probably you're looking at Lenox Township, and I don't know what the cost would be to haul that to, 26 Mile Road 994, but
I have a question.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, what is the source of the 3,800 tons a year of waste? What is that? What is that?
Oh, that Riverview, that is their.
I mean, what on Grosse Seal? What is the source of that volume of waste?
That's our waste pickup.
So okay, because I know we pay waste management.
Right, but
Right.
then we have to pay.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
To dump
Yeah, we pay them for the service of removing it, but we pay there's a cost to
put it in the landfill.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I wanted
okay.
to clarify.
Yep.
Thank you.
We pay Waste Management just to move it,
Right.
and then we pay the landfill to take it.
Other questions, comments for our attorney, for Mr. Budney, for Ms. Beneteau? I see with none offered.
Brian, one more thing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nelson.
It's been suggested that Bob Z's yard would be enough to haul it over there. So.
Bob, what did you do?
Well, he may duck when we go to reappoint him next year.
Well, you're going to get $18.52 a ton.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Getting this back under control. Those in favor of, approving, as recommended by the DPS Commission, option B, the contract from the Riverview Land Preserve for landfilling solid waste as proposed by the contract being discussed. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? That will be approved. Thank you, Mrs. Beneteau. Thank you, Mr. Budney. Let's see. We move on to, this is mine. Okay. Harkening back to budget discussions, I move that the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees adjust the non-union employees' wages for the fiscal year 2017 through 2018 in accordance with the proposed management wage adjustment chart dated March 31st, 2017, which includes a 1.58 cost of living increase.
Second.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Trustee Bletcher. The background, 1.58% cost of living allowance is the budgeted amount and is consistent with discussions at board level during the budget preparation process. Let's see, for reference, the police and dispatchers are getting a 1.75% contractually guaranteed increase, and the union employees, the technical professional, office, administrative maintenance members, that's our other union members, non-police, are receiving a 2% increase per contract. So our non-union, our management, affording them a 1.58 COLA. That is the cost of living allowance computed for Southeast Michigan. Any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Budney.
Earlier, we talked about the budget and that the budget wasn't carved in stone. It was just the budget. Well, here's the first pebble of that, first issue to come up. My overall reluctance to do this is simply because we have a deficit. When you have a deficit, you need to look at what you can cut and try and make the deficit as small as possible. This is a totally discretionary adjustment that we have no contractual right. There's nothing that's forcing us to do this. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this bothers me, we were presented with a budget. We had talks. We got a revised budget. I had asked for and got individual statements on each employee so I could see right across what they had now, what they were going to get in an increase proposed, what their salary would be, and then all the goodies that go along with it, the FICA, the health, the dental, etc. So I had those three documents that I talk about, and then as backup for this motion, late last week, we get a schedule that has 4 new people added to it that weren't aren't shown on any of the things that I had before, are shown with a raise now. So I'm wondering if we approve this, if somebody else will possibly be pushed into this raise or taken out. I don't know what's going on when things don't seem to be the same, and they should. The people that are added to this schedule should have been shown in our proposed budget, and they're not. They're shown as not getting a raise. Now they're getting a raise. I'm not sure what's happening here. And from looking at this schedule, we have a part-time person who's been here less than a year getting a raise, but then we have another part-time person who's been here more than a year, not even on the list. I'm a little lost, and that's another reason I'm hesitant to go along with this. But the main reason is it's just part of the overall budget where we're at a deficit. We should be certainly looking to cut whatever we can to bring that deficit down, and giving a raise doesn't, in my mind, doesn't say the right thing to the residents of this fine community to be increasing our deficit by doing that. Also, and this is an aside, our wages and on this island, we don't have any real program for it. It's a hit and miss thing, and we have to get it under control. We need to look at it and see. Every place I ever worked, there were limits. You got to a certain point, and unless you got a promotion, you were done. The way we have it here, absolutely everybody just keeps going up. There's no cap involved, and not that they don't necessarily deserve that. The problem is our community can't afford it. We're going to be spending all our tax dollars paying for wages and benefits, and we can't do that. And every dollar we spend here, we spend now on a wage. It increases our MERS, it increases our pension, it increases our FICA, it increases our workman's comp. So there's, besides the raise itself, there's the ancillary things that are increased. I don't think in a year where we have a deficiency that we should be giving raises. And the people we're talking about, they were compared to the contractual people. Obviously, by contract, we have to make those payments. Although, just as a note, our school system hasn't paid a raise in 7 years. And they have employees, the teachers, who are on a step basis. And they went back and said, we can't pay the steps. So nobody has gotten any raise. But yet we don't, who don't have any program, feel that we need to give give people a raise every year. And these people didn't receive a raise last year, but they did receive one the year before. So I just don't believe, based on our situation with our budget this year, that we should be giving raises. In fact, of all the things listed, which incidentally, it was interesting that the raises weren't listed as one of the things that are causing the deficit. They were left out. But of all the things on that list, the one that we control the most is this. We can't, this is something we can do. And I personally don't feel that we should be giving raises in a deficit year.
Other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Nelson?
And what is the total cost to do this? I realize not the contractual ones, but all the other ones that are not non-union.
Right. The total increase on this for wages is I didn't do the part-time. I think that number, the 18, is not right. It's 15,086.96.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Because Mr. Fletcher.
I'm going to take and differ with you, Jim, as a matter of principle. At this point, I believe, from where I sit, it would be inappropriate for me to support a measure that places some of this cost at this point on the backs of our non-union employees. To me, it's very difficult to tell someone, whether I'm looking at Sharon or Dale or Ann or Joe or Duncan or anybody else out there that's a salary employee, and say, by the way, I want you to take a 1.58% haircut because of some decisions that may have been made in the past. I just don't believe that. I do not think that we should begin moving in that direction unless we've exhausted all other options. I have some hope and expectation that a new rec director will be able to help us in an area where we have been hemorrhaging money, and lots of it. I consider part of the problem the Centennial Farm. I make no certainly bone about that, and it's not a secret to anybody on this board, but I see that area of the township budget as an area where there is a terrific hole in the side of the township. Water flows in one side and money blows out the other, and I'm troubled by that. I don't rule this out, but I consider it in many respects to be a nuclear option. And I want to make sure that going forward we have exhausted everything else before I ask our managers and our non-union people to go ahead and put their shoulder to the wheel. I respect what Ms. Walker said earlier, but I view that as, to me, a last option, or one of the last options we should look at. And I firmly believe that the new rec director, whoever he or she may be, is going to have some certainly difficult decisions and recommendations to make. But that's why we're here. And I want to start by looking at that before we're not looking and expecting to have the non-union people start to carry that. So I respectfully disagree with you. It's a matter of opinion, a matter of approach.
And I would throw it to the board. And you're right. I mean, it's not. It's a very difficult thing to sit here and look at our people who are very good, very hardworking people, and say, I don't want to give you a raise. But I do feel, number one, that I have to represent the residents of this community. First of all, also, as what I was going to say is, why not postpone this and let us roll up our sleeves, get into this budget, see what we can kick out of it, and revisit this 3 months, 6 months down the road. And do it at that point after we've actually saved some money, rather than possibly increasing the deficit and being tied to it and not being able to do it. So that, I mean, yeah, I agree. Budget is always very difficult because it seems like we're always saying to somebody, whether it be a wage or an expense, something they need, you can't have it. It's not easy, it's not fun, and I believe me, I don't enjoy doing it. But what I think is with a deficit we try and cut, and that's something I think we can do.
Other comments from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Malvesto.
I understand both Jim and Carl's takes on this. I'm not going to get quite into the depth that they are. Jim is absolutely right. There's no reason that this can't be put off for a short period of time, or for a period of time, whatever that may be. The $15,000, I'm just going to use a round number, the $15,000 is a very small number. It's a very small percentage. It is not truly representative of what the actual cost will be, because you could probably add somewhere between 30 and 40% over and above that cost in benefits alone. The other part is this will continue to compound itself for years to come. It's not going away. It'll continue to compound. It'll get larger and larger and larger as we go. In a township that has a declining population, both in schools and in numbers, and that's been brought up before in different meetings, and at this point in time, I have a hard time placing these type of burdens on the residents. I spoke earlier about numbers that we were given at the study sessions, and all of a sudden now there's a one number of 190,000 could now be 90 or 100,000. We don't know until after an audit. Perhaps after the audit would be the time to revisit this and reasonably revisit it. Because it was an open study session, there were numbers that were tossed about the table until we actually threw some real numbers out there, and the board was comfortable with it. Some of the raises that were spoken about, we conceded down to a different number, a much lower number, and we were all again pretty much in agreement with that. At that time, I don't remember anybody suggesting that the two raises that we were discussing would also get the 1.58, and I'm seeing that now that they would get both the raise that was conceded to as well as a 1.5. I have a hard time with that. I have a term for it. I'll keep it to myself. Additionally, there's some. We got this list on Friday. I'm looking at it, and Jim is absolutely right. There's additions to that weren't immediately transparent or brought to light during our marathon study sessions, and all of a sudden here they are. Again, $15,000 is a very low percentage on a budget that we have, and it's a very small number. But at this point in time, I just can't support it. I'm sorry. In favor of the residents. Thank you.
Ms. O'Connor.
I can read the votes, but I just want to say it doesn't say anything very good about us when we are punishing our non-union staff by not giving them a cost of living increase. I don't consider it a raise because it's not based on merit. It's based on what we've learned is the raise in cost of living. When we contractually give this and more to our union staff who have negotiated, what we're essentially doing is we're driving our non-union staff to join a union, and I don't think that serves us in the long run. Secondly, I know I'm an employee somewhere, and when I get my cost of living increase, I'm very happy about it. And I know that goes into somebody's profit margin. And, I'm not grateful that they decided to go into their profit margin to give me a cost of living increase because I know I work hard for what I do. It's kind of the same here. I know, we talk about saving the residents every penny, but our residents are all employees too. And I think many of them also look forward to receiving, if not a raise based on merit, if they work in any field, a raise based on the increase in cost of living. So I'm not convinced that, obviously we don't have to do this today, as you say, but I'm not convinced that that is a good strategy overall for the township. I think I tend more to agree with Carl that we have bigger budget items to dig into, and that our managerial staff is the one resource that we really depend on. And if they take it on the chin, they also lose credibility with their union staff, the people that they're supposed to be managing. So those are my thoughts on this.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
I'd like to say that initially this was not a cost of living increase. It was a market adjustment. That was the way it was initially brought to us. So
I'm going to correct you on that. This was all, unless I don't know if you misread or were improperly advised, but this was always presented as a cost of living. The market adjustments were for Mr. Duker and Mrs. Darzniak. Those were the only market adjustments that we studied the market. Let me, as the guy ultimately responsible for this, as Ms. O'Connor pointed out, every member of our non-union staff could organize. That would certainly affect our ability, our flexibility in going forward. Mr. Buddy, you mentioned the FICA going up in workers' comp. It wouldn't affect workers' comp, and FICA only would affect some of them because most exceed the maximum FICA capture. But we have 47 full-time employees. This township provides fire, police, refuse pickup, municipal water, municipal sewer. We have an airport. We have a marina. We have a rec department with a vast array of offerings. All the municipal services. Even have a community library. But all the municipal services you'd expect from a large metropolitan area, and we do it all with 47 full-time employees. The only reason we can do that is because we have a dedicated staff that puts in the extra effort. For me to say right now, well, if you make cuts, which they've already brought all the cuts they could to budgeting anyway without laying people off, they've already brought those cuts forward. If you make more cuts, then maybe we'll keep you from taking a loss this year. I don't see that as the way I want to run, or at least my portion of running the employee staff of this township. I'm proud of their efforts. When, again, I spend a lot of time in other communities, talking with other community leaders, and most, if not all of them, would love to trade places with me. I'm very proud of our staff. They're worth more. They've taken furloughs in the past. They've taken cuts in the past. They've taken passes in the past. I don't think the $15,000 savings is going to inspire any confidence in them to work harder to keep running at the level of efficiency I see every single day in this township. My closing comments. Further comments or questions?
Just one question then. If you pass this tonight, is this schedule that came with the packet, is that what we're talking about? Is that going to be it? No. Are the people listed in the way this schedule is made out? Is this what it's going to be?
Can I answer?
Is it going to change? Is there going to be somebody else added in or taken out? I mean, because that was one of my problems. There were four additional people over the budget, over what we were given up to that point, that weren't. I'm sorry, there were not 4 additional people. In the budget, those 4 people weren't shown with a raise. They were shown from 17 to 18 or 16 to 17. This is going to be it.
But
is that correct?
Jim?
Yes.
I'm just saying categorically, because the chart is specifically mentioned in the motion.
Yes.
That is the chart.
This is it.
This motion governed by that chart.
So if this passes, this chart is it. Is that correct? I mean, I just want to.
Yeah, everyone included in this chart.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board? All right, I'm going to ask for, since this is a little contentious apparently, I'm going to ask for another roll call vote.
I just want to say I didn't want to interrupt you, but I figured that was an easy answer.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I just want to know.
All right. So once again,
the board agrees with this. I mean, does everybody understand?
Records
this?
captured.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Supervisor votes aye. Mrs. O'Connor.
Aye.
Trustee Budney.
Nay.
Trustee Nelson.
Aye.
Trustee Bletcher.
Aye.
And Trustee Malvesto.
Opposed.
Motion carries. Thank you. Once on, I do have the individual votes. Mrs. He opposed. Okay, that concludes tonight's action items. With that, I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Budney.
I was just gonna say I felt sorry for Lorinda taking the big cut in pay, but according to this chart, she's taken a $16,000 cut in pay. Oh, yeah. Yep.
One's a base, one's an additive.
Yeah.
But it's not carried over. It's not carried over. Yep, you're right.
It's on the
No,
bottom.
it's on-
When I resorted it.
See, that's my problem. I can't see. I don't get the information to see.
Sorry.
Well, actually, I'm glad you said that.
I'm going to rule this out of order. We agreed on the people on this chart receiving a 1.5% cost of living increase. That was the intent of the motion. That will be the result of the motion.
If you see something in the packet that you don't understand, or if you see something that you think is a typo, please let us know. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Well, I came this morning to talk to Ann about this, and Ann wasn't in. That's all I got to say.
I'm sorry I had a vacation day this morning.
Well, but
My
I'm
daughter's
saying,
sick.
You were in all day today.
You're saying
This issue is closed. This issue is closed. Madam Clerk. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, getting ahead of myself. Okay. This was the where we moved off the consent agenda.
Number 3. Yeah. Do you have that?
Probably
Thank you.
easier.
Yeah. Be a motion to authorize and process and distribute payments dated between April 1st, 2017 and April 3rd, 2017.
Second.
And this is to authorize the well, it is necessary under municipal accounting practices to begin the new year, the new fiscal year 2017-18.
It was just a timing issue. We couldn't pay, as we said earlier, couldn't pay past the first until we had a budget past the first. So the motion is to and seconded to process the distribution of payments from April 1st to April 3rd, 2017 on a separate check register. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. We can stay ahead. Okay, thank you. With that, thank you, Mrs. Gray, for the reminder. Madam Clerk.
Okay. Well, I hate to start on such a contentious note, but we do have an email from Ann Darsnick on St. Patrick's Day where she sent to all of us the revisions that we talked about at our budget hearing, and she did say, please let me know if you need a hard copy. I will be out of the office on Monday on vacation, on meeting Monday. So I just want to let you know she did give us quite a bit of advance notice that she was going to be out of town on vacation today. So I have good news, I think.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Oh, geez.
So last week I was mandated by the state to go out of town and learn and become accredited as an election official. And I had the pleasure, actually, of doing this up in Petoskey because I was quite far away when they had their sessions here, and I was not going to cancel my vacation to Hawaii to go to a clerk's training in Flint. So, but what I learned was, one, that Michigan is one of the most decentralized election systems in the country. That unlike many states who run elections at a county level, because we in our state run our elections on the city and township level, we have over 1,600 accredited election workers who have to go through mandatory training at this point every 2 years. So if that doesn't instill in you a sense of dedication of us poor suckers who work elections, I don't know what will. So we sat in the Petoskey City Hall, and most of the clerks in this building were from the northern cities. They have one precinct. They have a township hall that is half the size of our meeting room, and they do most of their business on an per appointment basis, and they will do a lot of their work right out of their homes, or they'll have a meeting room that they go to. Many of them are very happy. They're getting new election equipment from the state this year, as are we. But because they are a one precinct, two precinct maybe size township, the state's purchase covers all their needs. We have, they considered us a dinosaur. You know, when we go to most township functions, Grosse Ile is a big township, but we're not one of the biggest townships. Here, when I talked about our 6 precincts and our AV counting board, they were like, oh, you have what? You have how many election workers? They were quite, stunned. The beauty of here is we have a staff to carry this burden, and we have a team of dedicated poll inspectors that do our training on a regular basis, so that the burden is spread by many hands, whereas some of my colleagues in these smaller communities really are responsible for everything, and they are truly only part-time and alone. They don't even have an office really to work out of. So that gave me a new appreciation for Sharon and Brian and our team of paid volunteers. I mean, our election inspectors do get paid, but not really a lot for what they're required to do. So our county clerk has informed us that they have decided which brand of new election equipment Wayne County will receive. Oh, and trust me, my colleagues were absolutely flummoxed. They said, "You're from Wayne County? How was that recall? What was all that about?" And it's like, oh my gosh, well, I got to say some of our people actually helped. So, Sharon, I'm going to count on you, though, because the emails that I've received so far don't really outline. We put $32,000 into our budget for election equipment. We were mandated to do so. I know that some of the costs will be covered by the state, but we have to put in a match. How do you think this decision to go with Dominion is going to affect our budget?
Matched the other vendors' lower bid, and they were granted the contract. Dominion is a Grand Rapids-based company, and I have dealt with them on other election materials in the past. So I know that they're not going to go away anywhere. They'll be here to service us and guide us through the whole process. The equipment is not all that much different than what we have been using, certainly more modern, certainly lighter weight equipment, so that our population of election inspectors are not throwing their backs out trying to move the stuff around and lift and tote. So we're looking forward to it. I do have some additional good news. I did get an email late this afternoon from the county clerk's office indicating that we will not need to spend the entire $32,000 we put into the budget. I don't have final figures yet. However, we
like to hear.
We will not have to expend that entire amount.
Okay. See, so I was kind of glad that I could bring some good news to this table today. The other news about this is we're staying with the optical scan system in Michigan, and personally, as a clerk, I really like the system. It is technologically efficient, but it gives us that backup of the paper ballot, which leaves a really good trail. And when you meet the people from the State Elections Bureau, the minutia into which they go in setting up these systems, in checking systems, in cross-checking, in our rules and our regulations for elections, you often wonder why it takes us so long maybe to close the polls at the end of the day. But there are so many little details that we have to check off to make sure that there is absolutely, that we are recountable, let's put it that way, that we don't run the risk of ever being not recountable, because you never know when it's going to come up. So that's my good news for today. If you are interested in working an election, we can have staff starting at the age of 16. And I was very pleased to say that we often do have high school students working in our polls alongside with our seniors, and it creates a good relationship. The kids really like working on the electronic poll book, and the seniors really like working with the kids and learning how to use the electronic poll book. So it gives a good sense of community when we go through this process. So with that said, that's the clerk's report for today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's see. Treasurer Van Oss and the Deputy Treasurer asked me to read. Can't do it quite as well as Ted does, but I'll try. The Finance Office investments, February investment information was not complete to include in this board packet, but will be available for the next board meeting, will soon be available on the Treasurer's website, and probably within the week or so. From the Treasurer's Office, Township Treasurer's Office has finished balancing the 2016 tax roll. Paid 2016 tax roll, as well as other reports and documents, have been submitted to Wayne County. Unpaid 2016 real property taxes must now be paid to Wayne County. You were warned. Payments to Wayne County can be paid online at waynecounty.com/PTA. This site has up-to-date tax information, which includes a late penalty. Payments to Wayne County can also be paid by mail and in person at 400 Monroe Street in Detroit. Every recommendation I heard is try the other two options first. And the township will accept delinquent personal property tax payments from local businesses who have not yet paid their 2016 personal property taxes, those that are still paying those. And that concludes the Treasurer's report. We'll step to trustee reports, and I'll ask Trustee Malvesto.
Well, I'd like to talk about the Bike Path Committee right now. Currently, I apologize. I missed their last meeting. I was flat on my back with a cold. It seems to be going around the area. But they have identified some potential new members to the BPAC Commission, and they will be bringing them to the board at a future date. We are, based on personal schedules and cooperation of the weather, going to do a bike path audit. See what kind of repairs need to be done in the coming year here, and again, it's personal schedules and weather that's just been kind of holding us back. But we are moving forward on that. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers for the past month's calls for the fire department. A lot, yeah. Both Chief Murdoch and Fire Marshal Beaudry can tell you the numbers are increasing. Again, I just don't have the exact numbers. There's really not much. Am I missing something, Chief? We had our meeting last week, and new ambulance will be here about October. At which time we'll bring it out front and. Yeah, and the day of the windstorm, we all lost power and cable and everything else. 36 responses or better, and what those responses required were removing trees off of roadways, houses, you name it. So you had a crew out there not only making EMS calls, they were also removing the windfalls at the same time. As always, hats off to the fire department. They're a great group of guys, volunteers all. And when we need them, they're there. So thanks, guys. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have nothing to report this.
Okay. Mr. Blatcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. 2 reports. One is regarding the Greenways open space. we have received, the township has received contact from John Hardick through your office indicating that there might be an interest and an ability to clean up the area directly across from what was formerly the dump the township had. That is now the very southern end of the Gibraltar Bay Wildlife Refuge, commonly known as Elbamar Meadows. It's my understanding from speaking with you, Mr. Supervisor, that there's going to be some considerable interest at this point about trying to clean that up and bring us back within a clean site so that we can remove the contamination and hopefully even be able to use that property as originally hoped for over the years. Again, that's in process and we're waiting to see. And I thank you for bringing it to my attention and the Chairman St. Pierre's attention. The second thing is that the committee is also exploring options to relocate the ingress and egress to the ferry trails. You recall that the trail between the foot of Lowry on Ferry and Gage has been closed because of new ownership, and they're going to be building property, building a house there, 2 houses in the immediate vicinity. So we're looking at various options, and Mr. St. Pierre has been working on that, and we'll be talking to the homeowners again when they return from Florida and have an ability to respond. With respect to the report from the police department, I would note that in February there were 13,596 miles that were driven. Total calls were 640 with 22 alarms, 32 rescues, 52 911 calls, and we issued 128 verbal warnings to people driving on the island. There were also 4 warrant arrests. The animal control officer was also busy. She took 33 calls and still is found a way to adopt out most of the animals. There were 0 dogs that were euthanized and 1 cat that was euthanized. So Julie works very hard to keep that shelter as close to no kill as is physically possible. I would also indicate, to follow up on comments made earlier today, that training has been said to be a very important part. Chief Porcerelli is very big on training. I'm proud to report that our newest dispatcher, Reardon, took law enforcement dispatch certification and emergency medical dispatch courses. She completed both of those courses in a 90 percentile bracket. So that's quite an accomplishment for a new employee. A longer-term employee, Clerk Dispatcher Rohrig, also took an emergency medical dispatch and foundation recertification classes, and I am very pleased to report that she completed both courses with 100% accuracy. So your public safety department moves forward.
As Ms. Reardon, is she through her probationary period, or is she
No,
a
sir.
little time to go?
No,
Okay.
sir. She does have significant amount of experience with several of the police departments, but by all accounts seems to be doing very, very well here, and technically is very good at it.
You have a good selection process as you go through the applications, and it works out well.
A lot of hard work, and we've had a lot of good input from both management, and many years ago we adopted the philosophy that we should have the union people, the labor people involved. The theory was if we had an employee that didn't turn out the way we wanted, you hired them, you get rid of them. And now the attitude is we all have to live with them, so you're involved in the selection process, and they're our problem. So it's had a very good impact. And Chief does a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Bletcher. Mr. Nelson.
I have 2 things for you tonight. Mr. Ream, when he gives his manager report, will talk about the rec position hiring. And secondly, I have to a big shout out, a big thanks to Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Ream. One of the 2 buildings over here on Rio came down in the last couple of days. The other one will come down as soon as the cleanup is done on the one that's already down. Quick story, I was over there because, I just love to see that stuff happen for some reason. I don't know, I was a 2-year-old kid over there. But in any event, when he got close to being done, all of a sudden a raccoon just shot out the roof, landed on the roof. There's enough roof for him to stay there for a little while. So we stopped, and then the young kid that was putting water on it got his attention. He stopped. Well, guess what? What can we do? I'm not going to go up there and try and save this animal. So next thing you know, I see an animal going like this from about 18 feet up, hit the grass, jumped up, and ran away. I hope he or she survived. I guess it was a female because it was pretty big. Anyway, with that, I want to thank any and everybody that helped. It was a long, tedious process. Lorinda, everybody else that made this happen. Duncan was in court for about, I don't know how long. And so my neighbors might like me again, but I don't know. Anyway, that's my report. Can I say Mr. Sorty?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tom, if I left your name out.
It's been a process.
You were the king.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. In fact, we'll open up to the township attorney. Speaking of which.
I stole your thunder.
No, you didn't. Not thunder by any means, believe me. That was Friday afternoon. That building that exists in the picture now is gone this afternoon. So another one on the to the south still exists. I'm keeping my well. We're hoping that it proceeds appropriately. Let's put it that way. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Sorty. Again, progress, and we kept it on his dollar, not ours. Mr. Riem.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. To, I guess, continue the conversation on the railroad buildings that Trustee Nelson mentioned, Derek Thiel, who's no longer here, was involved. The entire Department of Community Development, Lorinda, Tim, Tony, Lori. This was very lengthy, and at the end, after the Township Board agreed to order the buildings demolished, from a legal perspective, Mr. Sorty said, under our ordinance, we can go ahead and tear them down on our dime, but then we have to collect. So under the state law, rather than us do that, we went to court, and as a result, it's being done. It took a little extra time. We have the courts involved, and it's not a financial risk to the township. So definitely a team effort. Related to recreation director search, as everyone knows, it's last week or 2 weeks ago. Kind of a blur. We had second interviews for 3 of the candidates, and we originally had, I believe it was 37. We did a review of numbered applications, no names, no addresses, things of that nature. Created a short list that was done by the review committee of a handful of employees, the CRC chair, and Liaison Nelson. After that first round of interviews, we just shortened the list to 3. The applicants came to Township Hall, met with me. I went over the budget, just gave them kind of what we had going on in rec, gave them a tour of all the facilities, had a lunch with the chair and the liaison, and then invited them back to Township Hall for kind of a meet and greet. And many of you came and met the candidates. The CRC members were also there and met the candidates. At the end, we all had kind of our short list, who the leader was, who the leader wasn't. And we did, as a very unofficial group, did unofficial consensus, and we all had the same person. There clearly was a leading candidate. So I have had conversations with the candidate, explaining to them our review process, how our next step is to come to this board and ask that you approve their candidacy. I have verbally received an acceptance of an offer that has contingencies. As you all recall, you've seen how we've done it in the past. That they are evaluating the timing, their schedule, and be bringing that to this board on the next meeting of April 10th. And obviously the contingencies are at that point in time, background check, legal check, physical, all those types of things. So that's all in process, and we would be bringing a candidate forward at the next meeting. So I know it's been a long process, but I do appreciate everyone participating. And kind of as the police department does, by having a committee approach, I think does help, because you get a lot of different views and perspectives when you're reviewing a candidate. And our goal was to find the best candidate for the community, and the resume and experience of the candidate is extremely impressive. So with that, we'll see you next month with that action. Township Hall, you may have noticed we have almost all of the windowsills replaced. The contractor came in this weekend and did so, and I believe over the next 2 weeks the wallpaper will be taking place. Assuming that goes well, then the baseboards are in and we're done. It has been a very lengthy project. So, but nevertheless,
we shouldn't have to do it again.
No, sir. No, sir. But we did it right. We waited a long time in between and made sure we had all of the leaks and waterproofing completed. So,
for those of you who are concerned that we put granite in for the windowsills, I mean, it looks really good. As it turned out, and this is just baffling to me, that it actually costs less to install granite than the composite things that we replaced. The beauty of the granite is if we do spring another leak, which windows and stuff move after a while, I mean, that granite's over 200 million years old. It is not going to delaminate. We won't have to do that again. It looks good. It costs less. So, well done contracting it out. Well done doing it right. Hopefully, we'll be long gone before somebody else has to sink a lot of money into this place. Hopefully.
Nothing else. Thank you.
Dale, before you leave, I just want to thank you and Jim for including us in that process. I thought that was a very good step to have that meet and greet, allow us to talk to the people.
Yeah, the meet and greet, I won't take credit for that. It's been done in the past, but Mr. Nelson insisted he wanted to I guess, check the personabilities, if you will, and get everyone involved. And that was a good way to see how they interacted. And at that point in time, I just kind of watched and listened.
Good step. Thanks, Jim.
Dale, two things, if I may. Number one, I do want to thank you. I had an opportunity to meet two of the candidates, and impressive, very impressive. And I think the one that you're referring to was, wow, a breath of fresh air, and focused on revenues. Second thing is, and I apologize if this is blindsiding you, I've tried to catch some of the meetings on GITV this last week when I was home with pneumonia, and we don't seem to have an awful lot on GITV. Any idea when that's going to turn around? And I understand there's special circumstances.
Yeah, well, we do have some staffing issues right now, but we're filling the gaps with some of the, I guess we'll call them the part-time regulars. And if anyone knows, our administrator is on sick leave, and hopefully we'll be back in a week or two. So if there are additional programming things, he does do some stuff from work or from home at the computer. So we'll make sure that gets
certainly wish him all well, too.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Iam. Okay, I've got...
if I may, before you get into your long, I just wanted to mention one of our ex-trustees, Mr. Posiask, was in the hospital, and I'm glad to report that he is out. He's doing better. I had the chance to talk with him this weekend, and he's home. He's got to get his strength back, but he seems to be on the mend. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, let's see. I have some nuts and bolts as to what Margie thinks we need to hear, and a few things I think we need to hear, and then I'm going to wrap up this fiscal year. So what's going on. Dine Out for Music to help support Music Boosters. Be added April 11th at Island Coney. Every Friday during Lent through April 14th, there's a fish fry dinner by the Knights at Sacred Heart Parish Hall. It's as Tom can tell you, it's a good deal more than just a fish fry. It's a full course dinner.
Just as a real,
stop by.
We are averaging probably in a neighborhood of 475 dinners over the course of 4 weeks. So a bunch of hardworking people, volunteers that put their hearts into making that happen. Thank you for everybody that's showing up and supporting us. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Yard waste. Okay, we still got a lot of debris laying around from the windstorms. Yard waste pickup starts on April 3rd. Again, 32-gallon containers, the paper bags, but don't get the weight over 50 pounds. Dump the junk, get rid of more stuff. Dump the junk, find a treasure, May 20th and 21st. Yeah, we'll have board meetings between now and then, but start planning on what you're going to divest yourselves from before you go there and find some new stuff to acquire. May 20th and 21st from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day. Sponsored by Greenways Open Space, and it's the parking lot of 8555 Grow Road, otherwise known as the DPW building in the parking lot. Easter egg hunt at Centennial Farm, April 8th, with one session at 9:30, another session at noon. $8 per child, which includes brunch, and $4 per adult meal. Giving you this ahead of time because this does sell out, and you must be registered. So for details and registration, go online, grociorecreation.com, call the rec department at 675-2364, or stop by the office, which is on the Golf Course Pro Shop next to Smokies. Cutting fallen trees, a lot of the open space locations, East River, south of Manchester, and on Meridian, south of Meridian School. Interested individuals may contact Margie Gape at the Township office, fill out the appropriate forms. Individuals must have the form on their person while cutting on Township property. Cutting may occur between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. per the Open Space Committee. Covered a couple of things I wanted to discuss, but we had the Rock CF run on Sunday. Well populated. I want to thank all the residents for their patience in dealing with the sharing the roads. We did not do as good a job as we should have in notifying people what roads were closed, controlling them. Chief Porcelli and I talked about this. Thank you to the police and police reserves for being creative and keeping traffic moving, keeping the whole operation safe, and we will certainly do better for the next event that brings a lot of visitors to our township. We have patching crews and tree trimmers on the island. They take up part or some of, or all sometimes of a road. Please be very careful when you work your way around them. The tree trimmers are the guys who are precluding the power outages, presumably. The patching crews are the ones who are keeping your wheels and tires intact. And Lorinda, I've got a lot of places, and I'm sure you've forwarded plenty of complaints also. And one more, I'm going to be polling your interest on this. I know there's a name for it, that bag, that pinkish plastic bag with the newspaper ads that gets dropped in your driveways about once a week. I'm getting complaints from residents. I don't like them. I clean them up for my neighbors' yards or when they end up blowing out in the street. And I believe Supervisor Jones, 15, 16 years ago, they had a similar program where they hung it on a hook on your mailbox. And I think he got it stopped. And I just want to poll the residents, just let me know how you think. If you enjoy it, if you appreciate it, if you consider it litter, let me know. If we all as a community consider it just litter and we don't want it, I'll see if I can get it stopped. If we like it, I'll just keep picking up the ones I don't like to see. But let me know what you think on that. And again, as I said, we're wrapping up this township's fiscal year. It's been busy. I have my supervisor's annual report. My wife questioned me, slow down and read carefully because you get in a hurry and you start slurring words. So I will slow down and read carefully. Again, I'm just trying to wrap up it's been a busy year. So let me get right into it, hopefully not keep you too long. The Board of Trustees, you elected in 2016, midway through our first year in office. We're established in our various commissions and committees and doing our best to keep your government running smoothly. This annual report will serve to present the state of the township based on a combination of facts, observations, and educated opinions. My mission, this will be my 9th year as your supervisor. My mission remains unchanged from day one, to ensure that the Board of Trustees and the Township staff preserve and improve Grosse Ile Township as one of our country's most desirable residential communities. With the support of your Board of Trustees, I will continue to seek and implement every means to develop and market those assets that distinguish Grosse Ile as a family's best destination to call home. We're all neighbors and stakeholders, so I continue to seek your inputs and advice on how to improve both government performance and our community's appeal. Looking back, lots of changes and new faces. In my 50 years of following presidential elections, last November's was truly the most contentious. Regardless of your satisfaction with the outcome, your state and local governments must move on. We have many new faces in Township Hall, so let me begin by welcoming back Clerk Uta O'Connor and new trustees Carl Bletcher and Jim Nelson. All have been serving in volunteer positions and have decided to increase their level of commitment. Other new and almost new faces, 2 new police officers and a dispatchers, but I'll wait till they complete their probation periods to fully introduce them. Carol Knope retired after teaching me almost everything I know about township government, but before she left, she brought Margie Gape up to speed, and Margie has been ready to help. Michigan's economic outlook is improving statewide, but Wayne County continues to suffer from population loss despite the spectacular improvements within Detroit. Here on Grosse Ile, we survive the toughest times and are restoring personnel and services. We're still operating this township with a minimum staff who somehow continue to provide those municipal services that residents of a major metropolitan area have come to expect. None of our current successes or future endeavors would be possible without their dedication. We're all working hard to ensure our township remains and improves as the most desirable residential community in Michigan. So let's reflect on what we've accomplished in the past year. Once again, we've been recognized as the safest place to live in Michigan, one of the safest places to live in the entire country. The title is wonderful news and certainly highlights one of Grosse Ile Township's many quality of life benefits. Hope you agree with me that safety goes beyond crime statistics. Crime prevention, rapid life-saving response in a medical emergency, or a rescue from the surrounding waters or ice are all safety concerns. I'm convinced that much of our public safety successes are due to 2 factors: a community that will not tolerate crime, and public safety departments acting as a team. Our new contract with our police department and your renewal of the fire equipment millage will ensure our public safety team, police reserves, and fire and rescue will continue to focus on providing a safe community for children, seniors, and everyone in between. These dedicated professionals have demonstrated time and again a willingness to perform well above and beyond the normal call of duty. Don't hesitate to say thanks. Beyond being Michigan's safest place to live, we've increased our recreational opportunities as another of our quality of life goals. Volunteers from the Grosse Ile Nature and Land Conservancy continue to improve Sunrise Park, our secluded waterfront park on the Detroit River, and Grosse Ile's only public beach. We've contracted with the professional planners at Wade Trim to advise us on how to best utilize both this park and the sports fields at Commerce Park. Mr. Eugene Kowalski has joined our rec staff, enabling us to provide daily care for our assets throughout the island, and hopefully, we'll have a new rec director aboard to replace Brandy Boyd, who answered a fabulous offer from Oakland County. Lots going on at Water's Edge. A new roof, fresh paint, redecorated interior, Smokies on the Water is up and running, providing dining and entertainment opportunities in a completely renovated and updated restaurant. The replacement of the maintenance facility at Water's Edge is finally complete. The new building is compliant with all current codes and has been relocated to a much more suitable location, offering a safer work environment for employees and freeing up areas for more efficient usage. There were some additional costs incurred in the relocation, but moving the building was clearly the right thing to do. We did skate on the all-seasons rink. The rink was actually so busy for a while we had to establish separate times for hockey and open skating. We will continue to develop this well-received addition to Grosse Ile Rec and look for inline skating activity this summer. Engineering reports indicated that corrosion weakened our overlook on East River Road. That was repaired with new structural supports and a replacement of a portion of the decking. The future addition of a bench will make this an even more inviting venue to take in the spectacular view of the waterfront. Farther down on East River, the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, surrounding the southern end of our island, is now open to visitors daily. Again, the Nature and Land Conservancy volunteers, working with the Fish and Wildlife Service, have secured daily access, significantly increasing our opportunities to enjoy all the beauty and tranquility that the refuge has to offer. Bike paths. Thanks for approving the millage. Our Bike Path Advisory Committee continues to evaluate maintenance requirements and expansion opportunities for our nationally recognized system of walks and paths. The exciting news is the grand opportunity we are pursuing to extend a bike path from Grow Road into the International Wildlife Refuge. Hopefully, future funding will allow us to connect to the Downriver Link Greenways network of bike paths and trails extending from Monroe into downtown Detroit, and actually all throughout the state of Michigan. Along with our recreational offerings, we have additional community activities to enjoy. Island Fest gets better and better. Product for an energetic, dynamic festival commission. This year, the event will return to the first weekend in June, hopefully a warmer weekend. Downriver's best fireworks show will continue here thanks to our new 3-year contract with Ace Pyro, one of Michigan's best and safest pyrotechnic companies. We completed our second year of residential road repair partnership with Wayne County and made significant improvements throughout the township. We're prepared to continue for another year, and we certainly have the projects, but that will depend on funding. I want to close this recap with a cautionary statement. We recently had a very minor water issue with Great Lakes Water Authority, and I want to thank those few affected residents who reported any taste and odor issues. I was very disappointed with some opportunists who did everything possible to turn a minor anomaly into a major political issue. Those efforts benefited no one, only generating distrust and wasting time. Our Department of Public Services is dedicated to bringing reliable, safe water to your homes. I'll continue to rely on their expertise for guidance. So at the moment, I just returned 2 weeks ago from a Michigan Association of Township Supervisors Conference. I learned a great deal from the guest speakers and my fellow supervisors, hopefully enabling me to continue to improve my performance as your chief elected official. I make a point of comparing our government to other townships in order to assess our performance. When I describe all we have to offer, again, municipal water and sewer, refuse removal, recycling, police, fire and rescue, an airport and a rec department with a marina, a golf course, 2 pools. We provide all these services with a full-time staff of, right now, 47 personnel. I get everybody's attention. Their usual assessment, you must be doing something right. Your board has just finished our budgeting marathon, all of us working with the manager and finance director to develop a responsible budget. As I'm sure you are aware, we finance this township's costs primarily through property taxes. Like most of Michigan, we are still recovering from the recession that technically ended in 2009 when our property values dropped by almost 20%. While we're doing better than most local communities, we are still struggling to continue to provide and improve the services you've come to expect, leading to difficult decisions. I do not expect dramatic improvements in our finances. So far, this winter has been mild. Hopefully we'll be spared the road damage and water main failures that accompanied the temperature extremes of previous winters. We did have one extreme snowfall event, causing us to declare a winter emergency for snow removal. Compliance, thank you, was excellent. We didn't have to tow any vehicles left on the streets. The repairs at Township Hall are nearly complete, finally. As I reported last year, some minor housekeeping turned into major issues in our 75-year-old structure. Having corrected leaks, mold, and corrosion problems, we discovered foundation failures that took additional time and money to permanently repair. As in all remediation and preventive maintenance situations, we do not want to have to address this again. The deteriorating appearance of some of our residential neighborhoods, a condition many of you brought to our attention, has been largely reversed. We continue to resolve hundreds of appearance and maintenance violations, and I hope you agree the township does look better. Aware of our responsibilities and seeing improvements, I invite your thoughts on any changes to these good neighbor ordinances you think are more appropriate for the community. Groceal Connect, our smartphone app, has been operational for a year now, has been well received. Currently, over 3,000 residents utilize it to stay up to date on all that is happening in the community. For those of you not connected, this is our real-time means to contact you. The most important use of the app remains public safety. We will be able to notify you immediately of need-to-know developments, road closures, water main repairs, bridge openings, etc. We've listened to your comments and are making some changes to the app to make it more helpful. One example, expect to see a downtown button to advise you of Macomb Street developments that might interest you. We warned you, Angela. Speaking of downtown, Angela Secaucus, who's here tonight, our Downtown Development Authority Director, is working to reintroduce residents to all we have to offer in our business district and hopefully encourage more activity. Look for a series of local events throughout the year. She might even invite us guys next time. You may have noticed we added 2 park benches at Lions Park. Angela and the DDA are revisiting ideas for development of this future asset. With more activity on Macomb Street, maybe we can fill some of the empty storefronts with the kind of businesses we need and want. So looking forward, a continuing and justifiable concern of Groceal residents and visitors is the condition of the Wayne County roads within the township. Transportation funding throughout the state still remains in turmoil, Every community is waiting to learn what the legislature will produce, and going forward, we do the best we can with the dollars available. We completed a major water main project on East River Road that employed exciting new technologies and materials. High-density polyethylene has replaced the aging and constricted ductile iron pipe. This HDPE water main should last throughout the next century and beyond, and we are proposing a similar replacement for the main along East River Road. These projects will improve water flow and firefighting capability.
West River Road.
West, did I say what oh, okay. Thank you. Stepping in, straighten me out. Similar replacement for the main along West River Road. These projects will improve water flow and firefighting capability throughout the Grosse Ile by completing a 12-inch water main loop that encircles the entire island. Our direction in the days ahead will remain challenging. Population loss has resulted in empty homes, reduced enrollment in our school system, and closed businesses on Macomb Street. Property values remain relatively flat, an objective indication that more families need to call Grosse Ile home. We've made all the appropriate reductions. I remain convinced that no community ever cut its way to prosperity. We need to grow. So let me know what you want in your future. Working together, we can and will make Grosse Ile an even more desirable place to live, work, and play. In conclusion, this is a special place. I hope you enjoy the same sense of relief and peace I feel as I cross the bridge eastbound when I'm home. With that, we have every reason to be optimistic about our future, so let me close by asking once more that we all commit to making this the community that we want our friends to discover and join us, the community we are proud to call home, the community we want to live for our children and now my grandchildren. So thank you for your confidence, your support, and your participation. And as I used to always say, if you're lucky enough to live on Grosse Ile, you're lucky enough. Thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with us for this last year, and we'll look forward to fiscal 17-18. With that, Ms. O'Connor, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just curious. Sharon, you shared with us a draft of the annual report. Will that be available online? For the treasurer's report, the clerk's report, and the rundown of all the departments, et cetera.
The book is going to be bound along with the approved budget, as is standard protocol annually. And since we had to wait for the budget to be approved tonight, we could not undertake the binding process. So the annual reports are available, but not printed as yet and not bound. So by the April 10th meeting, we will have them available.
Will they be available? Will we be able to scan them on the website?
I will then put it on the website.
Perfect. Thank you. That I didn't want to steal your thunder, but
no, that's,
I thought people would want to know.
Well, because normally this time we have a stack of them waiting at the door, but again, we only want to print them once. All right, with that, public comment. 3 minutes. Anything you want to talk about if you want to stay here, and you know the rules. Mrs. Walker.
In response to what you just said, to let you know. Well, I'm going to let you know. We Kayak is having its second annual Blessing of the Fleet, and it will be June 20th, 2017. I know you didn't mention kayaking. You probably thought I would, so I will do that for you. We had a meeting on the 14th. It was a party. Mr. Malvesto came, Trustee Malvesto, and it was well attended. It was free, as will be the second Blessing of the Fleet. I'm hoping for a bagpiper, so let's keep our fingers crossed on that. But it should be a nice time, like we had last year. It's just going to be something easy on a Tuesday night. We'll have a lot of kayakers, and hopefully the board will be in attendance. We could use our launchers again. So thank you again. Remember, June 20th. I'll have a flyer up soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Guess I wore everybody out. I'm about to try that more often. Okay, with no. But there were no legal fees reported on this, so I'll do my part. Oh, Ms. Walker. Yeah, please.
We have a Woody update. We went and saw him today. We had a Woody update. He's in the hospital. He had a kidney removed. He's doing well. When we got there, they said, oh, his wife's here. I said, he's not married. There was a lineup of women. So he's having a good time. brought him a couple of things. He was very interested in coming tonight. He wanted to leave the hospital to come, but we said, no, we'll tell you what goes on. But anyways, he was doing well, and he's going to be out in about 10 days, I think, Tim? Is about right? Yeah, he looked good, and he was very happy with all the attention. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. All right, no other hands going up. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Budney, seconded by...
Second.
By just about everybody. I'll give it to Clerk O'Connor. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none offered. I'll call the meeting closed, and I'll call fiscal year 17 closed at 13 after. Good night, all. Be careful. See you in April.